My name is Aubrey James. I was 26 years old the night my mother looked me in the eyes and said something I will never forget. I wish I'd erased you before you were born. The room went silent. Forks paused in midair. Conversations died. Even the music playing softly in the background seemed to disappear beneath the weight of her voice. Then came the laughter, not loud at first, just nervous chuckles from relatives pretending discomfort was entertainment. My sister Olivia leaned back in her chair with that familiar smile, the one she wore whenever I was the target instead of her. My mother didn't look ashamed. She looked satisfied. Because in our family, Olivia was the golden child, and I was the stain. For years, I carried blame that never belonged to me. If Olivia overspent, I was unsupportive. If she lied, I was jealous. If she failed, somehow I was the reason she struggled. I had spent most of my life apologizing for simply existing. But that night changed something. Because humiliation has a strange effect on people. Sometimes it breaks them, and sometimes it wakes them up. I sat through the rest of dinner without speaking. My mother kept praising Olivia like she had hung the moon. Olivia soaked it in, pretending innocence while throwing small smirks in my direction whenever nobody else noticed. But I noticed everything. I always had. That was the problem. I saw the overdraft notices hidden under magazines in Dad's office. I saw the expensive shopping bags Olivia carried home while claiming she was saving money. I saw the suspicious transfers, the whispered phone calls, the tension behind closed doors. And unlike everyone else, I remembered details. So when dinner ended and everyone drifted home, I walked quietly into my bedroom, opened my laptop, and began putting pieces together. Again. For months, I had been collecting screenshots, receipts, bank records, and conversations I never thought I'd actually use. At first, I told myself I was paranoid, that maybe I was imagining things. But numbers don't lie. And neither do patterns. Transfer after transfer had disappeared from my father's accounts. Thousands of dollars moved quietly through accounts connected to Olivia. At first, I thought she was acting alone. Then I saw my mother's name. That was the moment everything inside me went cold. My mother wasn't protecting Olivia because she loved her more. She was protecting herself. The next morning, I sat at the breakfast table while Olivia scrolled through her phone like royalty. My mother made her coffee exactly the way she liked it, smiling at her with a softness I had spent my whole life begging for. Olivia glanced at me and smirked. "What's wrong?" she asked sweetly. "Still upset?" I smiled for the first time in months. "No," I said quietly. "Just getting started." Her expression shifted for half a second. Fear, tiny, brief, but real. That afternoon, my father received a call from the bank. I still remember the way his face changed while he listened. The confusion first, then disbelief, then anger. "Olivia," he said sharply, walking into the living room with papers shaking in his hand. "Why are there overdraft notices tied to my accounts?" Olivia recovered quickly. She always did. "It's probably a mistake." My mother immediately stepped in. "Don't yell at her," she snapped. "Aubrey's always snooping around stirring up trouble." There it was again. No matter what happened, blame found me. But this time, I wasn't defending myself. Because my phone buzzed in my pocket with confirmation from the investigator I had quietly contacted the night before. The transfers were real. And they led somewhere much bigger than unpaid shopping bills. There were offshore accounts, forged signatures, hidden transactions. The deeper people looked, the uglier the truth became. By evening, cracks were spreading through the family faster than anyone could control. Relatives started messaging me privately. "Is everything okay? Your father seems upset. We heard something happened with Olivia." For years, people had only seen the version of our family my mother carefully curated. Polished smiles, holiday photos, perfect daughters. But perfection collapses quickly when truth enters the room. That night, my father knocked on my bedroom door. He looked older somehow, smaller. He held bank statements in his hand. "Aubrey," he said slowly, "how did you find all this?" I looked at him for a long moment before answering, because nobody else wanted to. The next 24 hours changed everything. Investigators got involved, accounts were frozen, questions multiplied, and suddenly, the family that spent years calling me dramatic was terrified of what I knew. My mother cornered me in the kitchen late that night. "You're destroying this family," she hissed. I stared at her calmly. "No," I said. "I'm exposing it." For the first time in my life, she had no response. Because deep down, she knew I was right. She had spent years building a world where Olivia could do no wrong and I could do no right. A world where truth was dangerous. A world where silence protected everyone except me. But silence had stopped protecting them too. The final collapse came 3 days later. My father gathered everyone in the living room. The atmosphere felt heavy enough to choke on. Bank investigators had confirmed everything: the hidden accounts, the unauthorized transfers, the forged paperwork. Olivia cried. My mother blamed me, and my father sat there staring at the floor like he no longer recognized the people in front of him. At one point, my mother pointed directly at me and shouted, "You've ruined us." But her words no longer carried power, because ruin had started long before I spoke up. It started the moment love became conditional, the moment cruelty became normal, the moment they decided one daughter deserved protection while the other deserved humiliation. I wasn't destroying the family. I was refusing to keep carrying it alone. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Friends distanced themselves from Olivia. Family members stopped pretending they didn't know what had happened. People who once ignored me suddenly looked at me differently, not with pity, with understanding, and maybe even respect. Meanwhile, my mother stopped calling, not because she forgave me, because she finally understood she couldn't control me anymore. One evening, my father knocked softly on my door again. This time, he didn't bring papers, just silence. "I should have protected you," he said quietly. The words hit harder than I expected, because for years, all I wanted was for someone to notice, to say, this wasn't fair, to admit I wasn't crazy for feeling invisible. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded. Some wounds don't disappear because someone finally acknowledges them, but acknowledgement matters. A few months later, I moved into my own apartment across town. It wasn't huge, but it was peaceful. No tension humming through the walls, no comparisons, no walking on eggshells. For the first time in my life, I could breathe without waiting for criticism to follow. One afternoon, while unpacking books onto my shelves, I found an old family photo buried in a box. Olivia smiling brightly, my mother holding her close, me standing slightly outside the frame. I stared at it for a long time before finally placing it back in the box and closing the lid. Not out of anger, out of acceptance. Because healing isn't pretending the pain never happened. It's realizing it no longer controls you. My mother once called me a stain, something unwanted, something that ruined the picture. But stains tell stories. They prove something happened. They remain long after people try to scrub the truth away. And maybe that's why they feared me so much. Not because I was weak, but because I remembered everything they wanted forgotten. Today, I don't carry revenge in my heart. I carry clarity. I know now that family isn't built through fear, guilt, or loyalty forced through pain. Real love doesn't humiliate you to protect someone else. Real love doesn't demand silence in exchange for belonging. And real strength isn't becoming cruel after surviving cruelty. It's choosing peace anyway. So if anyone watching this has ever felt invisible inside their own home, if you've ever been blamed for things you didn't break, If you've spent years shrinking yourself just to keep everyone else comfortable, hear me clearly. You are not the stain. You are the proof that truth survives even in places built on lies. And one day, when you finally stop apologizing for existing, you'll realize something powerful. The people who tried hardest to erase you were terrified of what would happen if you finally saw your own worth. My name is Aubrey James, and I survived the family that tried to make me disappear.